Good evening, YouTubers. Welcome to episode 31. This is part 2 of 2. So you've just watched the video all about Simon Benoit and his engine on the dyno, which I was extremely pleased with. I just sneaked out in the garage because I ran out of space on my phone to save any more footage. So what I've done is I've split tonight's program into 2. So next you'll see the XR2 interview with Gary, and I rebuild a Solx carburetor, and I had a lovely package from a chap called Alan in Scotland. So hope you enjoy it. Little experiment for me as well, because I'm trying to sort of find out and learn what you guys actually like watching. So I'll have an idea by the end of the week whether you prefer to just watch loads of dyno time and engines being stressed out on the dyno, or whether you actually enjoy interviews with different cars. So a bit of a learn for me as well. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the episode. I will look forward to seeing you all next Sunday at 7.
Okay, YouTubers, welcome to tonight's show, where hope you're all sitting comfortably with your popcorn. We're going to start the night off with a lovely phone call I received from a chap a few months ago, a chap called Alan from Scotland, and he rang me and he said, I've had imps racing blah blah all my life, I've got some stuff there, never going to use it, would you take a look at it and give us a price on it or whatever? I said, yeah, by all means, post it down to me, I'll have a look. He said some of it's damaged, etc. So I said, right, no worries. So he posted it all down to me very kindly, and I didn't send him any money or anything. And he's got new valves in it. And the first head I looked at was this big valve. Is it a Chesman head, this one? No, it's not a Chesman head, but big valve head. It's had a bit of war, you know. It's probably sank here. It hasn't got any supports in there, etc. But it's a big valve head, quite well ported. Certainly got enough material on it to go again. We'll weld it all up and support it and skim it and give it a rechamber shape and recut the seats, new set of guides. I'm sure we'll get a tune out of that. It's a sport block. And then there was another head here that was in the package. This one's just I'd imagine this is come from like a G15S. It's a standard imp sport head with the bigger chamber for 998, and it's been wheel stringed. So that's another head, no markings on that one. Good imp sport casting though. And then this was really nice, and this is the point I want to get to. He said, I've got a cam there, unknown, have a look at it, see what you think. So I had a look, and I'm trying to focus now. Basically it's saying, it's telling us that that's a 182 thou inlet lift at TDC, but it does say around here somewhere that this is a Carter. Can you see on the top line there, Carter D100, and it's got the inlet and exhaust clearance. So that's a proper Egan Carter cam that's basically been hanging around for years. It's even got the threaded part at the end for mechanical rev counter drive, you know, for the Smith's chronometric. So that's a really nice cam. Same lift as an R23, but I think it's got a different lobe separation angle. So we're going to put that in an engine that I've got that I've always wanted. It hasn't got any Carter cam in it. It's got like a Fraser B. So I'm going to swap it out for that, and we're going to see how it runs. We'll do that another date. But anyway, what I was going to say was, this was the part of the icing on the cake. Was, he said one of the heads has been quite badly damaged. It's bruised. I've had it away to an expert. Blah blah. And I looked at it and I thought, crikey, this is an original Chesman wedge head, this. So if we look, we can see all the moons on these end here, where we put the supports in, that are a bit crude. What they did with the Andy Chesman engine was, he used to start, this is what we call a wedge head. So you see the thickness there, and the thickness there is different. The head is wedged. I'll come to more on that in a minute. But basically what he did was he ground it all out and welded all the chamber up before they even started machining them, you know, putting seats in them. The other thing you can see is, if you look at the deepest part of the chamber there, see that deep corner? Well, on this, what he's done is he's fillet welded the corner of the chamber so as to create, you know, a nicer area for the air to flow past the valve, and also up the compression ratio, because we was always chasing compression ratio, the guys that knew, you know. So looking at it, it's had a bit of war, but it'll certainly go again. We'll weld it all up and just check out how sung that is. But on the top here, which was quite interesting, that's the Andy Chesman number. And then on the front here, it says 18.5 degrees head face. So if you look how thin it is, it's been skimmed on the wedge. And they've obviously increased by skimming it on a funny angle. They've actually increased the angle of the inlet port. So it's quite a late thing. In fact, it's making sense now. I've just realised something. See these holes here? That's because this has been in an upright engine, like a Vixen or a single seater sort of type, you know, where the engine stands upright rather than laying its side. So when it's on its side like that, the oil can just drain away from the guide seals. But when they're upright, it often pools. So what they've done is they've drilled them holes to help the oil from pooling and find its way down. It's also been machined for a bronze carrier, this, so that's nice to see. It's got some odd oil drain, but we'll just lob that off and weld it up. So nice ports. We can make a really nice head out of that. That was really nice to see. But what I'm coming to that really shocked me was when this chap was on the phone, Alan, he said, oh, I've got an Ian Carter cam cover as well there. And I thought, oh, that'd be nice, you know, an Ian Carter cam cover. I've got one Ian Carter engine, but I've actually sold it, you know, the one we did the test on and we ran it. And I was expecting an imp cam cover, you know, with a little blue plaque on that says Carter with the 4 rivets. And then when they opened the box, I was like, I don't believe it. A genuine Ian Carter cam box cover. I just can't believe me luck. I mean, I've wanted one of these like all my life. I actually came across one on an engine at one stage, but I bought the engine, or what, it was a bit of a confusing situation, but I bought the engine, I'd actually sold it before I even got it, and I tried to steal the cam cover, but my mate Glenn was a bit sharp and knew what I was up to, so he said I need the cam cover with the engine. Hope you're watching this, Glenn. Anyway, there you go, look at that, my own Carter cam cover. So I'm going to put that Carter cam cover with my 5 bearing bottom end that I've got, which will be coming too soon, because the 5 bearing engine that you may or may not know about has now been machined by Stuart, and he's on its way back to me soon. So that was a nice little start to the week. Thank you very much, Alan. What I'll do is I've offered money, etc., but he's building his G15 up with his 1040. Any problems you have, just bell me, any parts you need, and we'll make sure you're well and truly sorted out. Okay, chaps, we've been joined today by Mr. Gary. Say hello, Gary.
Hello.
Gary has bought his immaculate XR2 for us to see. Now, you may remember, if you're a keen Shrigleytuber, that a couple of weeks, or probably 5 weeks ago, we did a CVH engine, just put some oversized pistons in it. We put those at 1.3 pistons in it, with a taller crown height, so it gives them a good compression ratio. And then I sort of said to Gary, look, you know, we fitted these Kent R cams back in the day. Gary will tell me the number again now, no doubt, but anyway, it's got a cam in it as well. So Gary, could you give us a bit of a history about, you know, you bought it recently, I know, just give us a bit of a local on it. So
I stupidly bought it unseen off eBay in Scotland, because I've always wanted another XR2, having had 3 or 4 in the past, yeah, but they were Mark 1s.
Because you've got lots of Hillmans, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got my 2 Singer Chamois Sport and the Sunbeam Imp Sport, so I thought I'll get something a bit more modern for bobbing up and down the motorway.
Ah, fair play.
So I bought this, and wasn't like it is now. It looked okay initially, but obviously once you start stripping it down and whatnot, the corrosion reared its head on the wings, sills, floor pans, so we ended up doing quite a lot of welding. It was about 8 weeks non-stop.
Wow.
Welding in the sills, in the wings, repaired all the bonnet, scuttle panel, and then found the engine was a bit tired. So we brought it down to the favourite engine builder, Andy, and he spent some more of my money.
Yeah, well, and, you know, you can't take it with you, mate.
You can't, no. You can't.
And I'm glad you invested in the camshaft.
Yeah, so yeah. Bought the Sports R Kent cam, which was a hefty sum, but seems to run really well with it, you know, and just need a bit of, once I've done a bit more miles, I get on the rolling road and see what it's doing, BHP, with a bit of luck. So
I reckon it'll have a good 10-15 over standard.
Yeah, well, the cam does 15 over standard.
Does it?
Yeah.
And that coupled with the compression increase as well.
Yeah. And the cross flow head.
Oh yeah, we put it on
cross hatch head, didn't you?
It's a cross hatch head,
but
it's a hemispherical head opposed to the beak one,
yeah. So drives really well. It goes well.
Good. Can we have a little look at the engine bay?
Yeah.
And maybe the interior as well. Yeah. Well, it's absolute. I didn't expect it to anything less than being totally mint being yours, but all of his imps are like this as well. I'm so jealous. But yeah, he's a bit perfectionist, is our Gary. Wow, look at that, it's even got the correct air filter on it. Look at them inner wings. Brilliant.
Yeah, even splashed out on the battery cover.
A battery cover?
Yeah, genuine Ford one. Just
Is that expensive, that?
It wasn't cheap, even if it was second hand.
It's okay, I understand. Does your missus watch this programme?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she does.
Yeah. Oh, so I think they're about 10.
40 quid.
Yeah, they're 10 quid new then.
yeah, 40 quid second hand.
Brilliant. So Gary, I wanted to finish off by saying you've started your own YouTube channel.
I have, yeah. It's called Gary's Classic Cars. So
Yeah.
if you just Google it or YouTube it, should I say?
Yeah.
I've got a few videos on of me Sunbeam and my Singer and the Fiesta.
Brilliant.
And even my Mini, what I used to have years ago.
No, mate.
So-
We don't talk about things like that.
Well, you've got to have every option open when you're in the Classic, haven't you? Mini or not.
No. No, if you're a Hillman guy, you're a Hillman guy.
Well, I did sell the Mini because I had another Hillman, so there you go.
You made the right choice in the end.
I did, I did.
I have nothing against Minis, they're a great
It
car.
was good for what it was, but I would have it back.
Would you?
Yeah.
It was red one, wasn't it?
Yeah, metallic red one. It's lovely.
Yeah. Well, you just need a bigger garage, mate.
That's the problem now. I'm stuffed because I've got the 3 in and I've no room for working now, so I need a unit. That's my next step.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
Right. Well, when you're a YouTuber, a famous YouTuber, you can do all your restorations on the camera, and I'm sure people will love to see him because Gary's one of them guys. If you ever see his photographs on Facebook, I always make a comment. If the car's on axle stands and he's like chopped the sills off with a grinder, when he cleans up, he hoovers inside the axle stand, don't you?
That's correct. But the thing is, when you come back after your night off,
Yeah.
you're straight into it, and you're not kneeling on sharp edges of metal or anything. It makes your life a lot easier.
Oh my God, mate! Do you think you could do anything with me?
No, I think you're beyond repair.
Right. Well, thank you very much for showing us around this wonderful little XR2. I am very jealous, and yeah, one day I'll get my Ford on the road. Right. One of my things about the XR2 was the noise. They had their own distinct noise from that little CVH engine. Gary, does this have the XR2 noise?
I think so.
Go on, give us a blip. Oh, mate. This is an absolute peach. I love it. It's got a rasp. That's that extra bit of compression. Cheers, see you later. Okay, YouTubers, something a little bit different, but something I do a lot of here, and this section only applies to Hillman Imp people, but if you've got an interest in carburetors, you might get something from it. So what we have here is a disassembled Solx carburetor, which is a standard carburetor on our little Hillman Imps. Now, as standard, they come with a 20mm choke, or some of them have 22s on the later L4 engine. Now, what we propose to do in this video is go through how to modify them and make them better. There's 2 things that let them down, but apart from that, I have one of these on my little Husky, and they're an absolutely cracking carburetor. I would have them every day over a pair of Strombergs. It's a fixed jet carb, so it doesn't go out of tune. It's 1 carb, so it doesn't go out of balance. And although the log type manifold looks a bit sort of Weasley, should we say, it actually works very well. And if you've got a mild state of tune, sort of 998 or 930 imp, you'll be surprised how well and what good economy you can get from a modified Solex carburetor. I get like 45-50 miles to gallon out of mine. Not that it's important because it's just a classic car that you only use occasionally, but you know, it still matters. It's nice that it's an economical car. So looking at the carburetor, there's 2 main issues with the carb. The first one is where the fuel pipe goes in here. This is the little brass fitting, and it's just sweated into the aluminium. And what happens is they can work their way out, and because it's on the pressure side of the pump, because obviously we've got the fuel pump mounted on the engine here and the pipe comes round, if it comes out, the engine will carry on running on the fuel in the float chamber whilst the pump still pumps fuel everywhere. And of course, we unfortunately have seen a few Hillmans get burnt because of this pipe coming out. So what I always urge people to do is just put it in a vise gently, pinch the little brass tail there, and work it out of the float chamber top. And then all I do is I simply run an 8.5mm drill down the hole, open it up, and then I use a 1/8 BSF tap, BSP, 1/8 BSP, crikey, losing the plot, tap, run the tap down it, and then I like these 90-degree tails. It's just an 8mm tail. These are from Cytec. It's actually a fuel pump tail, but it does the same job, so I can't actually start it one-handed. But that screws in there, and then it brings the fuel round, so the fuel line can be nice and neat, because it sticks out a bit when it on the standard setup. You know, it's like wanting to catch the chassis leg, especially if you're doing engine changes. Anyway, that's one of the problems that this little Solx carb has. The other one is, it's not a problem, but because it's a small carburetor and most people have got a breathed on engine in the imp to some level, it'll either be bigger capacity or got a sport head on it, they will love some more air. So 22mm of air waiting at air pressure to get through that hole, it's not a lot. So obviously the performance is limited. So what we do is we bore the choke out to 24mm, and that as you can see there, you can see the shiny bit inside. All I've done is put it in a lathe and run a boring bar through it. If you didn't have any machine facilities at home and you had time, you could probably do it with like a Dremel and just keep measuring it and get it accurate and get it up to 24mm. To be honest, I did a big engine for my Husky 1068, and I ran it without a choke in it and it worked a treat. Did good power actually. Anyway, I don't suggest for a minute you go on that road. I'm just saying it would actually work. But so that's a standard choke, bored to 24mm. That's the two things you can do to your carb to make it work much better performance. Obviously the main jet, which is here, I think this one will be a 110, is it? So 115, 115 that one. We have to make the jet a 140. That's just a starting point, because obviously because of the way the carburetor works, obviously all the air going through the venturi causes a depression. So because we've got a bigger hole now, we've not got quite as much depression to draw the fuel through the jet, so we have to make the jet bigger to give it the same amount of fuel. So what I'll do now is I'll put the camera on the stand, and together we'll go through putting it back together. Sorry, I took it apart without thinking about making a video, and I just come to it now and thought, oh, you know what, some of the Hillman gang might like this, because it's something they can achieve at home in their own little garage. Okay, so the first part you come to put your Solx back together is we're going to put the choke back inside the carburetor body. It simply goes in. Now interestingly, it goes in from the spindle end, hence why we've got the spindle out of it. So this is the little locking screw and the washer, the tab washer that locates in this little slot in the body. Can you see the little slot there? Now we're not going to tighten this dead tight, because we've made the choke a lot thinner. There's only a couple of threads now in the hole where it locates, so we're going to be mindful of that when we tighten it. Now what we'll do, just offer that up down the hole, and I've got a socket ready here to help me. I can see it's just slightly not quite in line. I have to pull it back out again, push it back. There you go, it's in line now. So you can see I've lined up the hole with the hole in the choke. Then we just simply put that in there, start it, and knit that up, and then we'll bend the tab washer over. So that's the big choke installed, ready to go. Okay, so we've got the choke in the carburetor. I've tightened it up and pinned the tab washer over. Now something I did forget to mention is the base of these carburetors, because they're on like a heat absorbent, I think it's probably asbestos or something, pad, when they get over tightened, it bows the bottom of the flange. So whilst it's stripped, it's a good opportunity to get a flat file, just give them a rub, and then to finish off I like to get them on a machine table with a piece of 240 grit paper and just go rounding up and down with some WD-40, so we know that we've got contacts all over. It's going to be a nice flat flange for it to seal against. Now next job to do is to put the spindle in. I didn't completely dismantle my spindle. I just literally undid it from the front face where the carburetor operating spindle, what would you call it, quadrant sits. So I've just put some goo on here, some of my Rocold paste. I've left the spring on. That's a little spring that keeps the pre-tension on it, and of course this is the pump, accelerator pump housing. So I've left all that on to help make it easier. So I know that it all enters from this side, because this is the back of the carburetor. As the engine sits like that, the side we can't see. I know that goes to the bottom, and I know that bolts on there. So I can see now that all that looks correct, so I'm happy with that side. So what we'll do is we'll move to this side. Now it does help if you've got a camera phone to take pictures when you take this apart, because it all looks really simple, but after you've cleaned it all and come back to it next day, it can get a bit confusing. So the first part to go on is this part. This part doesn't locate on anything, and it operates the choke fast idle setting. So the as you pull the choke on up here, when it's assembled, what happens is the lever pulls this and it catches the inner bar and brings the throttle open, so you get a fast idle when you're on full choke. And between that and the next piece goes this little steel shim, and then the next part is the throttle stop. Now that goes over there like that, and you can see that's where the throttle stop sits on the aluminium there. So that's your engine idle screw. So that adjusts the speed the engine idles at, the amount of air the engine can get past the butterfly screw, past the butterfly. So next part is this part, which we will call the lever that attaches to the throttle quadrant. So that has a little location peg on there that we just locate it on. Then we've got a tab washer that goes on like that. I've just used the old one. And then we've got the nuts. So put that on, I'll tighten all this up, and then we'll do the next section, which will be putting the butterfly. Right, we're ready to put the butterfly back in the slot. So I know from a photograph from when I took this apart that the number 8 lined up with the 2 holes on this side. So I'm just going to slip him in there. I haven't cleaned it massively because I don't want to take any size off it. They're a funny thing, and getting them central can be quite tricky. That should go in there, he says, but for some reason it's not. Why is it not? Does it need a little bit of a love tap? Oh, there it goes. Right, so what you've got to try and do is close the throttle off now. There we go. And then what we'll do is, I've pre-prepared these 2 screws here. These are the butterfly screws, and I've got them soaking in Loctite 601, which is a high strength retainer. So drop one in, drop the other in, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to tighten them, I'm just going to nip them, because the next bit's quite important to make sure that the butterfly centralizes. So they're not nipped up. I'll just check that the throttle stop is backed off. That's this screw, because we want it to go into its fully closed position. So back that right off. Yep, that can't touch now, that's good. So I'll give it a couple of taps like that, and then what we'll do is, you can't see me do this, but I'm going to hold it up to the light, and I can see that there's no light around the outside of the butterfly, so I know it's seating perfectly. And then we'll just nip the screws. Don't go over crazy, because if you ever need to take it apart again, you'll have to use heat to release the Loctite. Otherwise you'll just break the head of the screw, because it is only brass. Right, so they're nice and tight now. So that, just hold that there, it's in the way. So I can see that's shutting beautifully, wide open, straight, nice big hole in there now. Get some air through there and get some more horsepower out the flywheel. Right, we'll move to the next stage. Right, okay, next stage is going to be fitting the needle valve. Now, Dr. Bob from the Hillman Imp Club supplies a full kit with all genuine Zenith parts in it. So the customer supplied this, and it's got a brand new needle valve in with a new aluminium washer, so that's great. Don't ever be tempted to fit any sort of silicone or anything on an internal part of the carburetor, because it'll just fall off and clog a jet. So that's the wrong spanner. Believe it or not, for some reason it's 12mm. There you go. So just gently pinch that so it squashes the aluminium washer nicely, and then you can just give it a little test by literally going, working perfectly that, so that's good. And then I thought, while we're here, we've got a brand new diaphragm for the pump jet, and a new spring as well, because quite often the springs rot in these if they've had moisture in. So the spring sits in there. That's the operating dimple from the lever on the outside there. So that goes that way like that. That sits in the middle of there. Do all this dry, no need for any lubrication. And then hold that gently, and I've got little brass screws that are pulled out of it. I've cleaned them, and we'll just put them in. Again, doesn't need Loctite or anything like that. They're fine, dry, no problem at all. So put them in there. Now, something I didn't mention was we did talk about making the main jet a 140. We also need to make the slow running jet a 60. Some of them do come with a 55 or a 60 as standard, but most of them are 45. Now, if you want to do this yourself at home, just go on the internet on eBay and type in drill jets. They're like £3. You can buy a full set of drill jets and just drill a jet out yourself. It's dead easy. Probably putting myself out of business here, but there you go. So that's that type. And then I've just noticed that we have actually lost a little circlip off there. We'll go and get one, and then that'll operate the pump jet. Right, brilliant. We're getting closer. Right, okay, we've got a couple of bungs that need fitting back in. But first of all, I thought we'd talk about the circuit. So we can see this is where the slow running jet lives. I'll clean that up, and that's been made to a 60 now. So that screws in there. And then because of the way the carburetor is built and designed, it has a drilling, and the drilling, can you see that hole there? That has a bung in it. Now this bung has also got a hole in it, so it's like an air jet. So that is the slow running air jet, and that just bungs that top there, so that it'll have air and fuel, allowing it to pull, you know, atomised fuel through the jet. I think I'm right in saying that anyway. So if we look at the way it's designed, it's dead simple. It gets its fuel from the float or whatever, draws it through there, and then the fuel goes down across this drilling down here, and then this little threaded part here, there's a hole on the inside. So when the butterfly is shut and it's not operating on the main circuit, all the slow running fuel comes through this screw. So on an imp, you have a little screw here with a spring on it just round the back. The carburetor sits like that, so you have to put your hand around the back to sort of get to it when it's fitted in the car. But that's your slow running idle adjustment. So obviously that's the circuit it runs on when it's idling. So that's that one done. And then there's another one. I think this bung is part of the pump circuit, which is to do the diaphragm, which is like your acceleration pump. So when you've got no airspeed, it pumps a big jet of fuel down this little curved bit here, and that squirts into the engine to help it accelerate before the airspeed catches up, and then obviously it's away on its own then. And then this is called an emulsion tube, and it's a really clever piece of kit, and it sort of helps the carburetor to give more fuel where it wants more fuel and less fuel where it wants less fuel. It's probably completely wrong what I've just said there, but you know, for the novice like me, that's all we need to know. It's a clever bit of kit. Carburetors are absolutely amazing things. If you think about what they do and how they do it, they are a very clever bit of kit. You'd have to be a very clever person to design one anyway. So we're just touching on here. Right, next part is this. Now this is the famous link rubber pipe that goes between the float chamber and the carburetor. Now, Dr. Bob assures me this is the latest ER9 ethanol proof material. So that links, if you can see, that just pushes on there, and then this is all held together by the top of the carburetor. So that's the float chamber. What we'll do is we'll fill it up and we'll check that the pump circuit's working correctly before the end of the video. And then the next part to go in here is the float. So while it's off, give it a shake. If you can hear any fuel inside it, it's scrap. So that goes like that. Then we've got like little hinge tipping, we'll call it a tipper, not a tipper, no, what should we call it? We'll call it a float lever. So dead easy, it's like a toilet. When the fuel goes in here, that float comes up, this float lever comes up, and you see that little shiny spot there where it's worn, that pushes on this needle valve. You see how it's come down with the weight of it? I'm not even in the camera here. So you see how it's come down, that goes up and shuts the fuel off. So it closes the fuel off, then the float level drops, the float drops, so then it lets more fuel in. It's just an on-off valve, simple as, just think how a toilet works, exactly the same as that. So that's that and that. Next thing we'll do is we'll line the new gaskets up. We've got some new gaskets here. One goes on there like that. I might have to put a bit of grease on these. Oh no, look at that. They've even got location dowels. That's brilliant, isn't it? Remanufactured and it actually works. Fantastic. Right, and this is the gasket that goes on top of the carburetor. Now, as you can see, I've made a mistake there. There is a hole for something to pass through there. Don't ask me what it is, but it's probably very important and won't run if you get it the wrong way around. So that goes like that. Now I'm going to turn the camera off because I'm going to place the top of the carburetor on there. Or I might actually, no, I'm not. I'll tell you what we'll do first. We'll check that the pump's working. So I've got to put a circlip on there, make the spring work, and then we'll check the pump. Right, okay, nearly got ahead of myself there. I forgot to say, we'll put this in. This is a little clip that holds in the float lever. So that lives like that and makes him stay in position. I've fitted the little circlip, so if you look now, when we operate the throttle, it operates the diaphragm pump. We'll test all that in a minute, but before we can do that, we've got to put the main jet in. So obviously I've opened this up to 140 now. Drop that in position. This is quite a tricky job to do in the car, especially when you're on the side of the M6, as I have found out a few times. It's all character building. Right, new washer on the main jet bolt that holds it. Well, it keeps the fuel in there, gives you access. So it's 9/16. Tying that up. Right, okay, we're ready to put some fuel in and see if well, this isn't fuel, by the way, this is brake cleaner. Oh, I made a big mistake there, something's gone wrong. Where's all the fuel coming from? Oh, we've got a leak. Okay, chaps, we've had a minor setback. Basically, when I've been cleaning the carburetor, the little brass bung that goes in there that would have been fitted in the factory has been blown out. So there's one there, and it's gone missing. It's gone on the missing list. So this is an old carburetor I've just found, but I can see it should have a brass bung. Now, I do have a kit for doing carburetors where I use an M3 grub screw. So I'm going to tap that hole now and put an M3 grub in it. That'll fix that problem. Right, well that was something new that caught me out. I don't know if you can see if I zoom in there. That's a M4 grub screw, which luckily I had in stock. So I just literally tapped it, a few threads, and put it in. And I've given it the blow by, so I know that it is still, the pipe is still free to the float area where it'll collect its fuel. So that's that bit done. So I've just got to put the bung back in the top, and then we can put some fuel in and see if the pump jet works, which will be one of the tests we can do. Well, probably the only test we can do before we give it to the customer for him to try in the car. That goes like that. That goes like that. That goes like that. Okay, right, so put some fuel or some brake cleaner in there, and if we look, it's not leaking, which is good. Oh, there you go. So you can see, I don't know if you can actually see that. Can you see the pump jet? It's actually coming right out the carburetor, out the end of it. There you go, you can just see it in the background. So that's your pump circuit, and it's working well. That's great, because it's quite tricky if any of those little cross drillings get bunged up. So next, what we're going to do, put the top on the carburetor. That's really quite simple. I'll just do that with you now. I'll tell you what, I better empty the brake cleaner out. That's that gone. And then this gasket, we just talked about this gasket, didn't we? I better put that in view on where it goes that way, so that these two holes are able to breathe air from the top. And then this bit quite simply goes on here. All these screws are the same length, so I'll put a couple in there like that. This bit goes down here. We can do that later, I think. Right, cool. Well, I won't bore you with the reassembly of this part. It's quite Right, okay, I've fast forwarded there and just bolted the 6 screws tight, so that's all assembled. Got the choke mechanism working. Obviously it also has a butterfly spring, so the engine can actually open the choke itself. So if you've got it on full choke and you want to go up a hill, it will allow it some air. So that's on the front, so always check that hairspring's in good condition at the front there. Now the last bit we've got to do, I talked a little bit earlier before about the fast idle for full choke. So what this does is, if you look at the mechanism, as the choke opens, it opens the throttle. So we have to choose a point that we think will be a sensible amount of throttle for it to be open on full choke. So I'll just pinch it there. That's probably quite a lot, that. I'll probably reduce it. Obviously Mark can finish setting this up perfectly in his car. It's quite easy to adjust. That's more like it. He wants a little bit. Brilliant. So we'll get this to my pal Mark now at the next Imp Club meeting, and then I don't know if you remember, we did interview him. He's got the little 1040 Mark 1 curly edge block that he did the home build on his kitchen table and still stayed married. Amazing. So we'll get that off to him, and yeah, I think it'll be a great little carburetor. That these are good carbs. These don't throw them in the bin if you've got them, because I do believe they're the way forward for road cars anyway. Right, that's us for this week. Hope you've enjoyed the part 2 there, and I'll look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Just in case you're thinking of going on eBay and looking for a cheap XR2, because that was so nice, that XR2 at Gary's. Don't bother, they're all fortunes. We missed the boat by 15 years. Anyway, take care, see you next Sunday, bye bye.